Thank you for inviting us to have this conversation, and thank you for being here. Well, the starting point of this discussion is simple, and it's creativity can change the world. And I'm gonna now pick from something we heard in the last couple of days. Arish Hande, for example, a couple of days ago, talked about the need to reshape the narrative and the language about social impact and social enterprises. And this is very much true, especially for the arts and cultural and creative sector. Really beyond buzzwords, arts, creativity, and culture have been and still are very much overlooked when it comes to economic development. And even artists, creatives, and cultural professionals are often too humble and underestimate their own work, and this is very much reflected in the sector. And we think it's time for a shift. It's time for a shift where creativity is no longer seen as cute, but it becomes relevant. And indeed, creativity drives business growth, generates solutions, shapes our lives, our communities. The role of creativity is indeed more and more embraced by policymakers. Just to give you a couple of examples, creativity is listed in the top 10 skills of future work by the World Economic Forum. It is recognized by the UN as a powerful force to solve many of our societal issues of the planet we live in. But unfortunately, creativity pioneers, such as these beautiful people worldwide, are too often underfunded, but also isolated and overlooked as change makers. They stay on the edges. They fall in the cracks of philanthropy or those of the market. And it was said many times in these days, it's clear we are living in a time of deep crisis. One can also call it a polycrisis, a complex cluster of social risk that are intertwined. Climate change, poverty, conflicts, societal polarizations, and also mental health, as it has been said. It is in these moments of deep crisis that we need creatives. We need those people that dare ask big questions and they dare face and challenge important social issues. And I'm pleased and honored to be tonight with 4 people that will prove with very concrete examples, because this is not an abstract issue, it's very much concrete. So I'm pleased that with your stories we can share and provide some concrete examples of how creativity can change the world. And I would start with you, Daniel. You introduced Hope Raisers, the organization you co-founded, saying that it all started in Korogocho as a band of 5 playing music for social change. What is music for social change?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Quite a complex question, but I'm going to try to answer this. This is from my story, and I think George, who is shared, we come from the same community, and it's the same story. Of course, he's a senior, older than me, and the narrative is still the same. Years after George left, and many of us, like me, left, the narrative is the same. And as a musician, I started asking myself, why is this so? And I realized it's complex because it's ingrained within the system. And to be able to ask why the poor has no food, we have to start asking the system and challenging the system. So music became a tool for me to start questioning these issues and starting helping to mobilize community to question. In 2007, there was a big campaign towards, it was back then called Millennium Development Goals, and now it's called sustainable. I don't know how sustainable that is. There was that campaign back then, and I was involved to champion for how we can ask rich countries to give back, because we, poor country, pay a lot of money as credit to the rich countries. So we were involved in a campaign to ask rich countries to kind of cancel the debt for the poor countries. And I composed a song called G8. The song was questioning why do poor countries keep on paying. For years, we keep on paying, repaying debts, yet this money can come back to help the poor countries. And the outcome of this campaign was that when I did this music together with my group, the Italian government apparently, through a lot of campaigns that we were involved, decided to forgive Kenya some part of this debt, and the money came back to develop Korogocho. Now in Korogocho we have the slum upgrading program that is to improve the infrastructure, to improve the sanitation, education, and to kind of improve the situation within the community. And I feel when I define music for social change, it is what we as Hope Raisers did together with many other people to mobilize and organize our community to fight and ask for the deeper questions of why is this like this? So this is my definition of music for social change.
Thank you. So let's stay with music for a little bit. This CEO edition focuses on human and social capital, and Jail Time Records was born in the central prison of Douala in Cameroon. Well, I guess we all know that prisons are not exactly those places where human and social capital can be nurtured. Most of the times they're very dark places where it's really hard to find some, let's say, vision of change, of future. Dione, in your experience, so connecting also a little bit to Daniel's words, what is the power of music in giving voice to a part of society that is highly unrepresented?
Thank you, Marina. So just a little background. Jail Time Records is a record label, a non-profit record label producing incarcerated artists in Cameroon and Burkina Faso. And we built the first recording studio inside an African prison in Douala. So our mission is to kind of give a voice, as Marina put it, to unrepresented and marginalized individuals. And for us, the power is, it's very music is the most elemental art form somehow, maybe together with dance. It's universal, it needs no education. Everyone can relate to it. And especially it's what we found. Like when I was working in the prison and I came across a group of musicians, and within that context of an African prison, there is, kind of the most similar environment probably to a war zone one can find, because it's the conditions are really, really tragic. Seeing this moment of beauty, of like expression, of creativity, of freedom was a revelation, especially being an artist. So, the talent was there, the foundations of the project were already there, and we just decided to try and give the opportunity and the tools to people that didn't have them because of the context to kind of build on that and express themselves and talk to society as well. In fact, for us, we really see it as a potent tool of changing as well society's perspective on incarceration. In Cameroon is a giant taboo, although it is worldwide, let's say. And, we produce these artists in a professional way. They have professional recordings. We produce video clips inside prison that we release on our platforms. And till today, like, these artists that are inside this prison in Cameroon are the only artists that have received like media coverage in international music magazines such as Rolling Stone or Vice or The Guardian. And no other pop star in Cameroon has received that attention. So that really shows, how powerful it can be on a society level as well.
Thank you.
Giffoni Innovation Ops stands for very well-known and long-lasting experience, which is the one of Giffoni Film Festival. At the moment, I'm curious to understanding more about the context. So, what is the human, the social, and the relational capital in Giffoni Valpiano, who made everything possible? Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yes, first of all, I would like to explain what is Giffoni and what is Giffoni Film Festival, because maybe the most people here don't know. Giffoni Valpiana is a little village in the south of Italy, near Salerno, near the Amalfi Coast, maybe it's most famous, but it's a little village just in the countryside. And it's become famous because a young guy, 53 years ago, he had 17 years old, he decided to invent a film festival for kids. Since then, cinema has been a cultural instrument for changing the place, the environment, and all the mentality of people. Because the festival is famous because the jurors are kids aged 3 to 18 years old, and all these kids are hosted by the families of all the villages near this city. So the community has been involved not only in the organization, but even in understanding the different cultures, because these kids were coming from different countries. And the kids, they worked together, and they used to discover with the organizer of Giffoni how to create new projects. So since then, I've been working 20 years in this festival, and I decided that it's very important to work with the kids and with corporates, with foundations, with institutions, because their voices will be listened to many peoples. Meryl Streep once came to Giffoni, and she said, people will listen to the voices of Giffoni Film Festival and of the jurors of the festival. So these kind of voices are an energy that we use to spread and to communicate to very different kind of people, artists, Hollywood stars, politicians. And so this event every year that take place in July, it's something like happening, like I call it Burning Man, where all young people meet and they are free to express their will to change the world. So you can listen to voices from a Palestinian guy talking to an Israeli guy, and they stay together to understand that it's not only the different culture, it's the way that we want to create a future. So since then, I decided to live in Giffoni. I came from a big city, Naples, but I decided that Giffoni is a kind of platform where creativity is an instrument for young people, for entrepreneurs to create new projects. So we help them with a startup accelerator. We produce movies. We train young kids with digital skills. And so we have this huge community of young people that are interested in developing this project since from the south of Italy. So it's not an easy place because there's not so much money, but we have a lot of network, a big network. And so who wants to come to Giffoni will understand this kind of power and where maybe cinema, art, and creativity is a way to change the world.
Thank you. Ezenwa. So speaking of context, the Street Project Foundation was born in a very complex environment where there's lack of opportunities, lack of access to capital, and many other things for youth in Nigeria. But also, the organization's story and your story is rooted in Nigeria's social movements and mass protests of 2018. And we talked many times about artistic activism and how this has become a central component of your work. Can you tell us more about how creativity and the arts can be a tool to fight and to initiate change?
Thank you so much. Glad to be here to share my story and my experiences. So, just for context, I come from a country called Nigeria. We have over 200 million people in population. We have over 500 languages, and we have over 300 ethnic tribes in Nigeria. And the politicians in my country have been able to use negative brand of politics to divide the country. So the younger generation, my generation, we wanted to do something different because it's like the world has left us behind. And we decided to protest against bad governance. And we went to the streets. And they brought the police, they brought the army, and most of us were killed on the streets for protesting bad governance. I went to prison myself. A lot of my friends were killed. And we had to fall back to regroup. And that when it struck me, being a poet myself, being a writer and being a playwright, I decided maybe we have to change strategy. Because if we go to the streets, they will bring the police to shoot us and kill us and send us to prison. Why don't we use arts for our activism? Why don't we use the arts for social justice advocacy? And I started mobilizing young people across ethnic divide, young people across religious affiliations. And interestingly, my call was answered because I've been able to use the creative arts to unite the youth of Nigeria to speak with one voice. Because we see that the politicians, they use ethnicity and religion to divide us. My country has been through a bitter civil war, and my generation doesn't want to go through another civil war. So we decided to use the creative arts to speak up and not shut up about the issues that we care about. Interestingly, we have used our theater showcases to tell our stories. We have used our filmmaking to raise the voices of young people in Nigeria. We have used our poetry to advance our thoughts. We have used the visual arts to amplify our perspective and our opinions about our country and our aspirations for a better life in Nigeria for young people. It may interest you to know that as we speak, we were in the forefront using the creative arts to get the parliament in Nigeria to pass a bill for disability rights. Disabled people in Nigeria don't have a voice. They are in the background. They are not given a space to live. So we have been able to use the arts as well to bring that attention to the policymakers in the parliament. And interestingly, they listened to us after we made a lot of noise across the country, and they passed a bill for disability rights and inclusion. Additionally, in the political space in Nigeria, young people have been disenfranchised. We are not given a space to participate in the political life of our country. And we have been able also to use the creative arts, theater showcases, filmmaking, poetry, music. Music is, like my brother here has also said, music could be a very driving force for social justice advocacy. And we made a lot of noise in the country. And interestingly, we were able to win over the media as allies. And now when we do things, the media also has been able to help us to amplify what we do because we were able to win them over as allies. And we are also doing the best we can to win over community leaders because there are certain community leaders that have seen that the older generation has led the country astray and they want to retrace their steps. So we are beginning to see a little bit of change to win them over to our cause. So young people in Nigeria are very resilient, but we are denied a lot of things. There is no social buffer. There is no social services for young people. You mentioned mental health. There are no mental health services in my country for young people, despite all we go through. And when I say that we are over a country of 200 million people, young people under the age of 35 years old make up 70% of the total population. And yet, we don't have a seat at the table. So we are using the creative arts to speak truth to power. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you also for reminding us that if you speak up, your voice gets amplified. So, Luca, let's dive a little bit more into this complex relationship between culture and development. Investing in culture entails different kind of scale, metrics, and ways to measure impact. What is your perspective on this and why investing in culture is so important?
Okay, I always use the word of the professor Domenico De Masi, a sociologist, once said that we have a very specific example of how culture will last. And the example is in an area near Naples. It's called Bagnoli, and it has built an Aryan farm in 1900. And now, if you go to Bagnoli, it's something devastated, so you have nothing there. The bay is beautiful, but the fabric is just destroyed. Giffoni, as an example of how culture can take public money to create spaces. We have the Multimedia Valley. It's this hub where we invite people to create movies, to create startups. And this example is how culture will just go on. It's not like a fabric that creates products. It's a kind of platform that helps people to create projects, but even helps the community to create new business. Like Giffoni in 1971, when the festival started, there was just one bed and breakfast. Now we have 100 bed and breakfasts, and a lot of families are coming from big cities, living in the countryside, because maybe in the countryside you have more time to listen to your heart and to work not in a hurry, but just working with your maybe a more bright vision of your future. And if you have all the kids from all over the world coming there and sharing their ideas, maybe your vision will be always something that will give an impact to the community. So I think this is a kind of example that I always use.
Thank you. Daniel, in your experience with Hope Raisers, how do you use creativity in community development?
I think one of the things that, from my experience working with Hope Raisers for over a long period of time, there's always this concept: we are giving the poor the voice. We are giving poor people the voice, and from the experience is that poor people, we should let poor people speak for themselves. Our job is to listen. We should change, and that's what arts and culture and creativity kind of empowers the people to speak for themselves. While we listen, we get to understand from their perspective. Taking an example of Hope Raisers that developed organically because we just wanted to play music and to to be integrated into the conversation about how to develop our community. In the 90s, when George was growing up, when the internet started, if you Google Korogocho, you will always come images of desperation, people, like crime, like what he has described. But now if you Google Korogocho, maybe you'll come across Daniel Onyango playing Nyatiti. You will see some graffiti projects that we've done in Korogocho, bringing color to the street. You will come across our project that we give children opportunity to play roller skating, which is what our club is one of the best clubs in Nairobi for roller skating. You can read about the project. There's a book actually written about this. It's called The Hope Raisers. You can read about this work we've done. And to see the transformation that this project has done, giving young people, giving the community an opportunity to dream, because that's what, when you grow in this kind of environment, you feel like that is what is lacking. You feel like you don't have an opportunity to dream. So arts and culture and the possibility to imagine and to express yourself gives you the opportunity to speak for yourself, the opportunity to dream, and also to contribute to how do you want to see the community, your community that you live in, develop. So I think to answer your question, there's so many different perspectives, but the key here is giving the poor the chance to speak for themselves. And that is what I think arts, culture, and what is, for example, Todi without this monstrosity, which is also part of the culture. What is Todi without Bramante, for example? We like Todi because of that. So I think what would be Korogocho without those young kids roller skating and winning championship in different parts of the world? What is Korogocho without Daniel Onyango? Because we need to change the narrative of what George was talking about. We need to show beyond those walls. There are people with dreams. There are people with intellect and knowledge who wants to contribute to not just their community, but also to the country. Thank you.
Thank you. Jail Time Records works on scouting and promoting talent while also helping social reintegration. But what happens after jail time? So how do you work with your community outside of the prison? If you can share with us a couple of examples.
Yes, so is it working? We've, after a few years of working inside the prison, we realized that actually prison is also about freedom, and everyone is actually waiting for the day they're going to be released and living towards that moment. And we believe very strongly that through art, each individual can work like soft skills that are going to help him reintegrate into society, like working, with a focus, working, on nonviolent communication, working also in a group. So many things that are really going to help towards the day that they're going to go back into society. There is probably the most delicate moment, actually, is, the day they're set free. So, we were kind of working with people like going back to prison, bringing them back to go into the studio. But it was very painful often, a lot of painful memories. It was not an easy process. So finally, we managed to find some funds, and we created a studio outside the prison in Douala. And we actually have a bbigger space now, so some of the artists are actually living there. The studio is run by former prisoners, and it's open for all former prisoners as well. So like our musical work goes on after prison as well, and it's a safe space for everyone. We are very aware of the difficulties everyone faces once they're set free, especially economical. there's a very delicate period in which the risk of recidivity is very, very high. Often former prisoners are not accepted by their families. It's a big taboo, so they have nowhere to go. There's a lot of drug addiction and a lot of violence in the communities they come from. So we try and support as many as we can with like small grants as well. They are just there to help them maybe set up a very small activity, so they can do that and survive with that, and on the side do music until maybe, hopefully one day they can kind of make it in the music industry. And there's one example I'd like to share. That's Kengol. He's an artist that was in prison for not for long, around 7 or 8 months, on a charge of vagabonding, drug consumption and lack of ID card. And he is a street boy, so he lived on the street many years due to drug addiction, and also the family abandoned him. He's incredibly talented. So we worked with him, especially after prison. I didn't know him that well while he was in prison. And, he made a song that was a bit of a hit in Cameroon. A Cameroonian influencer that we kind of put him in contact with, kind of adopted him and made a whole series of kind of TikTok videos on this process of him kind of going back into society, finding a room, leaving the street, trying to leave drugs. And, the video became viral, and it was shared by the other influencers in Ivory Coast as well. They gave it a lot of power. Today, Kengo lives in a room. He's all nice and clean, and he's got girls searching him out because they've seen the videos. He has jobs in nightclubs as a MC and atalaku artist. It's a kind of musical style that's very common in Cameroon and Ivory Coast. And, through him also the project has been, known. We've got famous Cameroonian artists following us on Instagram and stuff. Yeah,
Thank you. And how do we move from art activism to skill development and the creation of job opportunities?
Yeah, thank you for that. So, for young people in Nigeria, creativity for us means you either create, or you innovate, or you simply die. Because by the time you go to bed hungry, because there's no employment, so by the time you go to bed hungry, your brain does something to you that you need to get creative if you want to eat. By the time you have lost friends or family members who trekked the Sahara Desert trying to get to Europe, and they die on the way, and some of them die in the ocean trying to cross the Mediterranean, trying to get to Italy or any part of Europe. By the time you are surrounded with such stories, you get creative. You have no option than to get creative. By the time you have issues with mental health and there's no counselor in sight, you will sit down and get creative. So our creativity is born out of frustration. Our creativity is fueled by anger, by passion, because the system is broken. So we have to find alternatives for ourselves, fend for ourselves. And that is why today entrepreneurship has caught on. It's like a wildfire blazing through the young people of Nigeria. And I'm happy that I'm leading that charge, because they are beginning to understand that you need to create something for yourself. The system is not there to provide for you, so what do? That is why social entrepreneurship as a tool to facilitate economic development in Nigeria today is beginning to catch on, and young people are beginning to pay attention. So young people are beginning to do amazing things, creating things in agriculture, in the transportation sector, in information and technology, in waste management. I can go on and on and on. Young people in Nigeria are very resilient, very creative, very innovative. It's just that we simply lack the platform and the resources. And I want to use this platform to make a request that anybody who really wants to partner with the new Africa, because Africa is coming. Young people in Africa wants to do things different from the older generation. We want to extend the hand of partnership to Europe, to North America. This will be a new partnership because young people in Africa, we are thinking differently. We are so different from the older generation. And I am here to say this to everybody that a new Africa is on the horizon. The energy that young people in Africa is bringing to the table, it's not something you can imagine. It's something you should put your hands out for partnership for. Thank you.
So we're closing with just one super quick final question, the same for all of you. And I'm going to connect to a concept that is very dear to me. The fact that one of the biggest powers of creativity is its capacity to unlock imagination. And through imagination, we can fill the gap between the potential and the actual, see actually what is in between, or to use Elena's word, the key to look at things we don't see. And my final question for all of you is, what is the role of imagination in your work? Who wants to start?
I'll start. So I think, like, in terms of like working with creativity inside a prison, it's all about imagination, and it really shows how I think one of the speakers actually mentioned it this morning, how people in prison can be free, but outside maybe they're living a prison like inside themselves or inside their head. And you know, after 5 years working with incarcerated people, I think that really through art there is a form of imagination. You know, you can really kind of cross those borders, physical borders, that are actually like real physical borders, like four walls that are kind of closing you up and depriving you of your physical freedom. But you know, through that imagination, you can go beyond and you can elevate and you can communicate to people beyond your physical borders, and those people will feel it and respond, and so it's very spiritual.
Thank you. Luca, in one or two sentences.
Yeah, for me, it's very personal, because I think that creativity and imagination is something that you live every day, like you were saying. It's a personal experience. My personal experience of everyday work is like just playing with my daughter, playing djembe with my daughter, drums, because drums make you feel the same rhythm. And the rhythm of life, I have 50 years old, my daughter, she has 8 years old. It's like looking together with our souls when we walk in nature, when we try to imagine how to play a video game just for happiness. So all these values that come in just talking to new generation, I think it's something that helps me to try to move my imagination further, more, you know, beyond what my normal way of looking at the world. So I think this is something very personal. So this is my energy.
Thanks for sharing.
Quickly, want to? For me, I imagine in this context, having this community here, looking at creatives and artists, and as part of providing the solution for the problems that we are looking for. And it's interesting that they've provided this opportunity to have us here also, as part of the ecosystem, and not to see culture and creativity as something separate. So I'm imagining as social entrepreneurs also to integrate the conversation around how can we be part of this integrated into this community. So this is what I'm imagining. Look at Daniel Onyango's Nyatiti player as also part of what you're trying to do. For example, working with farmers, I could be resourceful to that in enabling farmers to develop. So I'm just saying a connection between entrepreneurs, social entrepreneurs, and the creative and cultural practitioners. This is my imagination.
Thank you.
All right. For me, imagination is food to my soul. If you take away imagination, I'm left with nothing. There will be this void, this emptiness. Imagination is what fuels my creativity. Imagination is what fuels my innovativeness. Imagination is what pushes me to go beyond the boundaries, to do things that my community actually needs at this moment. My imagination is what makes me push the envelope, poke the behind of policymakers and government officials in my country, so that they could sit up and realize that young people in my country are suffering. Without my imagination, I'm left with nothing. And with my imagination, I know that tomorrow will be better because I'm fighting today so that I can live to fight tomorrow, even for my kids, for them to have a good life after I leave this earth. And also, finally, imagination is also what keeps me up at night. Because I dream of a better homeland for my people. And my imagination is what makes it become real to me, for me to work hard every day, and also to tap into the concept of global citizenship. You know, seeing beyond color, seeing beyond race, seeing beyond religion, seeing beyond affinity. Whatever you affirm or you stand with, I believe that as human beings, we need to appreciate life, in the form of that we need to see beyond titles, beyond whatever you feel that you are better than the next person. So my imagination is my power.
Thank you. Thank you very much.